A fun fact about the dress that I am wearing is that I made it and it took me over a year to make, even though it is one of the simplest dresses ever. And that's because when I bought the pattern didn't actually look good on my body, the top part of the pattern. So I had to self-draft this little cow neck thing to make it work for me. But now it's really cute and it's one of my favorite dresses. Being the queen of unrelated intros that I am, hello, welcome back to my channel. This video has absolutely nothing to do with sewing a dress, but it does have something to do with sewing. Earlier this year, I embarked on a sewing project of creating something that I had never really tried to create before, which was making my own handbag from scratch. I think the main actual reason was because for the past several months, I have not been able to find a handbag that I liked anywhere, and I have ideas of the kinds of handbags that I would like, but I haven't been able to find versions of them or anything similar anywhere. So as a result, instead of buying something that I didn't want, I had been carrying around a pretty grotty looking tote bag that was given to me as like the shopping bag for a bunch of thrift clothes that I had bought a while ago. And it was slowly getting more and more coffee stained and just generally grotesque looking. I was trying to remember what happened to my old handbag, and then I realized that I took it to Europe when we went to Europe, and I threw it out because it had really thin straps and it wasn't very well made and it was really old and the straps broke. And then I went to Disneyland and I got a sick Disney backpack, which I love, and just wore that around Europe looking like the world's biggest tourist target. If you had wanted to put me in a Liam Neeson film, I would have been really easy to spot. This took a weird turn. I mean, to be fair, I feel like the monstrous suitcase that I was carrying around with 3 weeks worth of outfits in it was probably the bigger dead giveaway that I was on holiday and not a local. That, coupled with the rough Australian accent and inability to learn any French while we were there except for hoka sans soup, but I don't even remember how to say, like, could I please have, s'il vous plaît? Is that it? I had to cut myself off because I am prone to rambling. The pattern that I used was a free handbag pattern that I found online, and I will link it down below in the description or a pinned comment somewhere. Basically, I just enlarged it a little bit because the original pattern was a little small for my taste. And I did this just by measuring out an extra inch around every single side. It still managed to all match up pretty well because it was a pretty simple shape in the end.
Who needs a pattern weight when you have a Smeagol? Whoop. He's so cute. Good baby.
The fabric that I was using to create the bag was one that I actually found at my local thrift store, which I love because they always have a ton of awesome crafting stuff. And I love getting secondhand crafting supplies. It's like treasure hunting. Basically, what I'm doing here is making sure that I reinforce the fabric. The instructions that I found for this pattern suggested to use an interfacing, which you totally could, and you could use an organza interfacing, but I decided to use EVA foam because I felt like it would add a little bit of extra volume to the bag to make the fabric look a little bit thicker. So this means that instead of just cutting out my lining, my interfacing, and my fashion fabric, I'm cutting out fashion fabric, EVA foam, 1 mil thick, in a matching colour just in case any of the foam shows through the fabric because it is a pretty thin velvet. And then my lining fabric, which was also a thrifted linen that I found at the same store. Now, once I had all of my pieces cut out, I stacked my EVA foam and my fashion fabric together, and you can see someone here wants to show off their feet for free. That's crazy, Smeagol. You are way more comfortable with the internet than I am. I'm not marking out the seam allowance. I'm marking out basically the edge to where my embroidery can actually go before it starts to disappear, if that makes sense. So I'm using a disappearing ink pen to mark out my pansies and just give me that general idea. And then I am sewing these together with just a basic straight stitch. And now it's time for my bead collection. I did initially try to put the fashion fabric EVA foam outer layer into my embroidery hoop, and then I realized that I absolutely did not need to do that. So here I am just stitching on my beads. I'm developing a bit of an obsession with a bead collection for beaded and sequined embroidery.
And there my baby's sleeping. He's so cute. I love winter because it means the cats cuddle like this and they cuddle me and they just lay in piles of fluffy blankets and jumpers. It's awesome. I love the colour combo of pink and red, and I love the colour combo of pink and particularly chartreuse green. I think I just love chartreuse green and any excuse to use it, as well as pink, because I am the definition of girly, and as much as I try to like grow my taste up, sometimes you just want a fun pink bag that makes you feel like your 5-year-old princess self once again. So I've got this combination of glass seed beads in alternating colours of pastel pinks, bright reds, darker reds, and some gold bugle beads, which are the long tubular kind, and I am just stitching them in and then couching them in place. It's a pretty simple sort of pattern. It's not really a pattern, it's a bit more random, to be honest, and this is just building up the pansy shape. And I did find that as long as you paid attention to sort of your light and dark pattern and placement of beads, the petals of the pansy would kind of take shape. I did pretty much the same thing for the leaves here, just different shades of green, chartreuse, pastel greens, and then a darker green as well to help with shadowing. Oh, look at my beads, so rainbow, so pretty. Nothing makes me happier than just like piles of colour. Well, I guess piles of textiles also make me really happy, but I just love piles of colour. I love colour combinations, finding them, making them, creating them. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty heinous threading tiny 2mm thick beads onto a needle. I had to find my tiniest embroidery needle. I think I lost this one, and luckily I do have a few packs, but yeah. You can also see that I don't really have like a bead organization mat, so they were covering my carpet by the end of this. Now I'm moving on to a couple of other patterns. I pretty much just googled like sequined beaded flower embroidery tutorials, and then just started building them up in the same kind of group of complementary colors, these pinks and reds. And just kind of messed around with them because you can always undo it. You're using a teeny tiny needle, so it's not like you're making horrific holes in the fabric here. But I really like this pinwheel kind of style of sequined flower where you layer up a sequin, a bead, a sequin, and then you do a line of beads leading into the center. I thought that was really pretty. And Earl found this process very fascinating. Earl does enjoy whenever I start sewing or sketching. He loves chasing pencils and spools of thread that I have to keep hidden away from him. So now I'm sewing my lining layer, and this is sewn basically as a separate little bag to the original piece. So how it works is you sew your lining pieces all together to make its own little bag, and then you sew your fashion pieces all together to make its own little bag. And then you use witchcraft to insert your zipper. I'm not kidding. I don't know how I did this. In fact, I had to redo it multiple times. I had it on like the widest basting stitch ever, and you can even see here that it's not totally finished, as I was trying to sort of like organize it and press it and make sure that my seams and my lining matched and figure out where I could end the zipper because of the idea that I had for the handle, which is again different to the pattern that I was using. So these little addendum bits that are hanging off, these little strings, they do go away in the end, and everything does look a little bit neater, but This is just me struggling with how I'm supposed to fold the sides of the bag in, because my ultimate goal was to have a chain handle and some grommets, which you can see me inserting here. Unfortunately, I suck at jump rings, apparently, which is not something that I knew that one could suck at, but yeah, I'll explain in a minute, but I need to replace these jump rings, and I've ordered the ones that I need to order. I needed a hinged pair. The goal was this simple gold chain handle, which I've had lying in my craft stash for years. I don't actually remember what I bought it for, but anyway. You can see that I've also done other piles of beads and sequin flower motifs all around, including...
Obviously, there are always a few things I think that you can do better the first time you try something. And I think that with this bag, a thicker fabric would have been a really good idea, as well as maybe doing some kind of like organza layering to make the fabric stronger instead of using the foam, because it was really thick to sew through and caused me a lot of tears. Putting the zip also caused a lot of tears, but even though I didn't have a matching zipper, I really like the contrast. I think that could have only looked better if it was a red to match some of the floral beading. The thing that kind of stops this bag maybe looking as nice as it could is that I really need to replace the jump rings. I got these jump rings and they're the kind that you have to open with pliers carefully and then close back up really carefully. And I don't have smooth jewelry making pliers that keep things looking nice. So the very much like building crimping style of pliers that I have kind of destroyed these jump rings. And I tried to sand that back and repaint it, but I also just could not find a gold that would actually match the original gold. So I have looked online, and apparently the best thing for this is to use jump rings that have a kind of like clasp that like locks in and out. It's like hinged. I will obviously replace the jump rings that I have with those, and then I think it will be pretty well finished, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it is super cute. I really like the idea that because there's still a bunch of negative space, I can continue with the beading. I can do a bunch of embroidery on, say, some iron-on kind of backing, and then just iron them onto the bag or clip them on like badges. I really want to add bugs because I love bugs, and I wanted to add green bugs, but I couldn't really figure out how to make them work. So if you have any cool inspiration images of embroidered bugs that you think would look cool on this bag, let me know. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more sewing videos, let me know. At the moment, I am getting really into self-drafting a lot of patterns because I just find commercial patterns really difficult to understand. And when I self-draft something, I get it. But my brain works backwards like that, and if yours doesn't, that's probably a way for your life to be easier. But I'll be over here having to figure everything out from scratch in order to understand it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe, because even if you didn't find this video entertaining, the next one might be. And that's not a promise.